Nigeria. A tweet from the country's president, Muhammadu Buhari, indicates that the flooding in the central parts of the country has displaced more than 100,000 people. Videos being shared on social media show flooded streets in Makurdi, with residents wading through water, trying to salvage their belongings. Now, the National Emergency Management Agency in the country has been deployed to the area. 2 temporary shelters have been set up to cater for those who've been displaced. Now, the state government says it will embark on a mass demolition of illegal structures that it says have been built on waterways in order to avoid a repeat of such flooding in the future. Right then, so let's get the latest details on exactly what is going on in Nigeria. Deji Panmus joins us now live in Lagos. Deji, good to see you. So let's start with the president's figure. He says 100,000 people have been displaced in the flooding there. Has the situation intensified since we started getting reports of this flooding last week? Try and quantify for us how much damage has been caused here.
Well, Rama, the damage is quite extensive, and the water, the good news is that the water is receding, but at this moment it's even difficult to, get an exact estimate now of the damage, the extent of the damage. But what we understand is, and from what we have seen, it's quite extensive, and it's not surprising at all. This is not the first time we'll be having flooding around that area. As a matter of fact, something worse happened in 2012. A lot of people thought, that the government and the people, especially living around that area, would have learned their lessons. But obviously, that's not the case, and now we have this. And what actually caused the flooding in 2012 is not what caused this, because, I mean, that area just witnessed about 4 days of non-stop rainfall, and then you have this. So, but the water, we understand, is receding, and of course, the government has provided shelter. The government has sent in relief materials to the people, providing household items and foodstuff, as well as building materials. So, well, the water is receding, and it appears the situation, I would say the condition of the people is being ameliorated somehow.
Indeed. We'll get round to the long-term solutions in just a moment. But last week, the president said the government will, quote, make available all assistance to the displaced. So what sort of aid exactly is being delivered, and has it all arrived to the people who need it the most within the entire state?
Well, now what the president has done is to ask us, you've been reporting, of course, the National Emergency Management Agency to go in there. That agency has actually gone in. The head of that agency has actually been meeting with some of the victims of the flooding, and of course has told them that it's quite too early for the government to know exactly the extent of damage and how it intends to intervene. But in the meantime, what the government has done is to send in supplies, as I said before, household items, foodstuffs, and building materials. As a matter of fact, the government has sent in around 27 relief materials. I mean, that's coming from the head of the National Emergency Management Agency. So as we speak, all the trucks are in the state, and the relief supplies, of course, have been distributed. 2 camps have actually been opened, shelters now, but one of them is actually not functional yet because people have actually not gone in there. But one has been opened, and then the Nigerian Air Force too has actually opened a medical facility, like a field hospital now in one of the camps. That's the camp now that's operational, treating some of the victims and providing some basic medical services. Rama?
Right, one last question for you, Deji. As you mentioned earlier, flooding in this state is a recurrent problem between the heavy rains, like you said, 4 straight days of heavy rains, and of course, a little earlier on in the incident you referred to in 2012, there was water being released from dams upstream. So are there any long-term measures, though, in place to contain this problem?
Now, Rama, this problem, I would say, there are 3 key issues that the government needs to address, the people too need to deal with. First is that area we're talking about now, everybody knows is prone to flooding. Everybody knows that. The problem with Benue State, I'm talking about the state where this happened, is that Benue State hasn't got the kind of drainage you need to control flooding. It doesn't have the kind of drainage you need to channel water into the River Benue, because that's where the river is. It's a massive river. Now, that state hasn't got the drainage now to channel water from the city, the towns, to the river. That's a problem. So it means the government of that state, as well as the federal government of Nigeria, would have to do something about that. I mean, it's a problem that has been there for a very long time. Quite surprising that not much has been done about it. Now, the second problem is the issue of these illegal structures. I mean, the government is aware of it. The state government is aware of it. I'm talking about the Benue state government. It happened in 2012. It was horrible. And a lot of people thought, well, something would have been done. But, you know, these illegal structures suddenly started springing up again. And people continue to build along floodplains. So that has to be checked. If that is not checked, this is going to continue. Then the third problem is the River Benue itself. It needs to be dredged. I mean, it's a very long time that river was dredged. And what happened this time is they had rainfall consistently for 4 days. Everywhere got soaked. The drainage blocked because the drainage is not massive. You have about 11 floodplains. I mean, flood channels now in that state. All of them, people have actually built on some of these floodplains now. So it became very difficult for water to actually flow through and then into the river. And you know, as we always say, water will find its level, and that's what has happened. So the government will need to deal with these three problems. And the people too must understand that you know, you just cannot build houses on floodplains, because if you do that, this is the end result, and this is what you're going to get. So it depends on how, you know, forceful the government want to enforce this to ensure people don't build. Now the government is demolishing some of these illegal structures, but it has to ensure that these people don't come back, because if they do, you're going to get this. I mean, the dam, for instance, who knows? The Cameroonian Authority might decide to release some water from the dam. That too could be a problem, Rama.